My name is Brad Patterson. I'll be the moderator for tonight's meeting. Before I get into the particulars, once again, Zeke Quijano is going to come forward and make an announcement regarding their services.
Once again, everyone takes, in case there's any Spanish speakers in the audience, si hay alguien que solamente habla español y quiera participar o escuchar la reunión en inglés, por favor pasen a la mesa del fondo del salón para que les demos un radio receptor y que puedan participar. Gracias.
Thanks again, Zeke. So for the record, this is a public meeting on an application by HK Bella's Ranch, LLC. I'll probably refer to as HK Bella for the rest of the night. It's for a proposed new permit. The permit number is WQ 001-6844001. I'm going to take a moment to go over some quick housekeeping, and then I'll go over the agenda for tonight's meeting. So first of all, we have here tonight with us from Representative Ryan Guillen's office, Bob McVeigh and Veronica Arriaga. They're here tonight because their office has been receiving a lot of phone calls about this application, some questions about the application, and they wanted y'all to know that they're here tonight to listen, to learn more, and to observe. So Veronica and Bob from Representative Guillen's office is with us, so we appreciate them being here. There may be some other local elected officials here as well. If you are, we appreciate you being here with us too. So let's see, the registration table is in the back of the room. Once again, the registration table, there were forms to fill out for tonight's meeting. On the form, there was a place for your name and mailing address, a box to check if you wanted to be added to the mailing list for this application, and then a box to check if you wanted to provide comments during the formal comment session of tonight's meeting. And so if you want to do either of those things, please visit the registration table before the meeting is over tonight. If you have a cell phone or a paging device with you, please turn it off or put it into silent mode. We would appreciate that so we can conduct the meeting without any disruptions. Then finally, to my right, on the side of the room, are the restrooms. There's a men's restroom and a ladies' restroom for your use. The format. We have agendas at the back of the table. At the registration table, so you can follow along with me if you'd like. Tonight's meeting will be held in three parts. Part one will be introductions and presentations. I'll introduce the folks that are here tonight representing the applicant. And then I'll introduce the folks that are here tonight from TCEQ who are assigned to the review of this water quality application. And then the TCEQ folks will have a couple of brief presentations that they'll make. We'll just talk about who they are and what their role is in the process. And then we'll do the next part of the meeting. Part two is the informal discussion period, which is really just a question and answer session. So during the informal discussion period, you'll have an opportunity to come up, ask questions about the application that's pending before TCEQ, and either TCEQ staff or the applicant will attempt to provide a response. Most important thing to remember about the informal discussion period, I think, is that none of the statements that get made during the informal discussion period are considered comments on the application. They won't be considered by TCEQ staff or the commissioners before making any final decisions on the application. Which brings us to part three. Part three of the meeting is the formal comment session. And so during the formal comment session, I'll call on you in the order in which you registered and indicated that you wanted to provide comments. You'll hear your name called and come to a microphone. And at that point, you'll be providing the comments that you want TCEQ staff and ultimately TCEQ commissioners to consider before they make any final decisions on the application. And so during the formal comment session, it's just you providing your comments for the record. Nobody up front's responding at that point. The comments that you provide during the formal comment session later on this evening get combined with all the written comments that have been submitted on the application. And they'll get responded to in one written document called the Executive Director's Response to Public Comment, which is something you'll hear a little bit more about during our staff presentation. So that's the format for tonight's meeting. So we'll get started with part one, which is introductions and presentations. So here tonight, on behalf of the applicant, HK Bella, we have Helen Gilbert and Lauren Crone. And then from the TCEQ, again, my name is Brad Patterson. I'm with the Office of the Chief Clerk. Jessica Yateman was in the back of the room helping get registered for tonight's meeting from my office. And then over here to my far right on the floor is Vincent Redondo from my office. And Vincent is operating our sound and recording equipment. So I'm going to take a moment to talk about that. So in addition to amplifying sound at tonight's meeting, we're also making a recording of the entire meeting. In order to hear you tonight, but more importantly, in order to hear you on the recording when we get back to the agency, anyone who speaks tonight will need to speak into a microphone. We will not pick you up on the recording if you do not speak into a microphone. No matter how loud you think you may sound in the room, if you don't speak into a microphone, you won't be on the recording. So we won't know what you said when we get back to the agency. So we have a microphone down here on the floor for y'all to use. We got microphones up here for TCEQ and the applicant to use. So again, anyone who speaks tonight will need to be speaking to a microphone so we can hear you and pick you up on the recording. Let's see to my left, from the Water Quality Division, Paula Palmar, Michelle Lavery. Down here in the front row are Deva Detta and Mike Lindner. These are all folks from the Water Quality Division. From the Environmental Law Division is Maricela Zertucci. Maricela is here tonight representing the Executive Director of the agency. And then from our San Antonio Regional Office, Joy Thurston Cook and Javier Anguiano are with us. Our regional offices are where our environmental investigators work out of. And so if you ever had any concerns about any facility that TCEQ regulates, not just this one, but any facility that TCEQ regulates in this area, you'd be contacting the San Antonio Regional Office. They would follow up with you, conduct investigations as appropriate, file reports as appropriate, and so on. So that's it for all the TCEQ staff that are here. And we do have a couple of brief presentations. And so to get us started with that, I will turn the floor over to Paul. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Paula Palmar, the permit writer for this application. Also with me.
Can y'all hear okay?
No.
Hold it real close.
No? Okay.
And Vincent
Better?
Booster.
Yeah.
Okay. Again. My name is Paula Palmar, the permit writer. Shell Lowry for the standard reviewers. Mike Linder for the modeler review of the application. Thank you for your presence tonight. This application was received on July 8, 2025. The applicant, HK Bells Ranch LLC, proposed for a new permit to authorize the discharge of 30 domestic wastewater at a daily average flow not to exceed 0.25 million gallons per day. If the permit is approved, the Bells Ranch wastewater treatment facility will be located at 4356 US Highway 181 North in Wilson County, Texas, and will serve Bells Ranch as single-family residential subdivision. The 30 effluent will be discharged to Kaycastor Creek, then to San Antonio River in segment number 1911 of the San Antonio River Basin. We conducted an administrative review of the application upon receipt to ensure that all required information was provided. We determined that the application is administratively complete. We also conducted a technical review of this application to ensure that the applicant adequately addressed all required technical issues to show that wastewater from the facility will be adhered to required standards and to effluent limits that will ensure protection of the existing uses for the receiving water bodies. Based on our review and analysis, we established effluent limits and conditions to be included in the draft permit to maintain the receiving water bodies, designated uses, and to protect human health and aquatic life. There is a copy of this application and draft permit for public viewing at Florence City Hall, 1120 D Street, Floresville, Texas. Thank you again for coming to tonight's meeting, and we will be happy to answer any water quality related questions that you may have.
All right, and then Paul is going to pass the microphone to Maricela, who's going to talk about the administrative process for this type of application.
Good evening. My name is Maricela Zertucci, and like Brad mentioned, I'm an attorney with TCEQ's Environmental Law Division. My role is to explain where we are procedurally with this application and what the process is moving forward. So I have a couple different things to cover, so just please bear with me. The public comment period will end at the close of tonight's meeting. Within 60 days, we will respond to all comments in a document called a response to comments. If you want to request a contested case hearing on this application, you must provide comments by the close of the comment period. After the RTC is mailed, you will have an additional 30 days to request a contested case hearing. This mailing will provide instructions for how to request a contested case hearing and what your hearing request should include. The TCEQ commissioners will consider all hearing requests at an open public meeting called agenda. They will determine whether there are affected persons and whether to refer this case to the State Office of Administrative Hearing, which is also called SOA. If this case is referred to SOA, there will be a formal legal proceeding called a hearing where the parties will submit evidence and call witnesses to testify. After the hearing, the judge will issue a proposal for decision, that's also called a PFD, and that will go before the TCEQ commissioners at another agenda meeting. And then the TCEQ commissioners will decide whether to accept or deny the PFD. Additionally, while we will answer your questions tonight to the best of our ability, there are a few issues that are outside of our authority to discuss. Chapter 26 of the Texas Water Code contains TCEQ statutory authority in the wastewater permitting context. Unless we are specifically given the power to consider an issue when we're deciding whether or not to grant permit, we can't consider that issue. Some issues that we either have no authority or limited authority to consider in the wastewater permitting context are things like property value, air quality, residential development, and flooding. If you ask us a question about one of these issues, our answer will likely be that it is outside of the scope of what we're allowed to discuss. You're still free to ask whatever questions you'd like during the informal period, but just keep in mind that we have limited time, and many of these non-jurisdictional issues have already been brought up in the online comments, so any information that I am able to provide about them will be in the RTC. But for the sake of getting to as many questions as we can actually answer tonight as possible, we're not going to discuss things that are outside of TCEQ's authority. So if you have any questions, please ask me during the informal period of tonight's meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that concludes part one, introductions and presentations. So now I'll move into the next part of the meeting, which is the informal discussion period, or question and answer session. Just some ground rules and some things to keep in mind as we start this next part of the meeting. First of all, and most importantly, I think, no decisions have been made on this application up to this point. No decisions are going to be made at tonight's meeting. As Marcelo was just referencing, there's still some process left before we even get to the point of making a final decision on this application. But at this point, no decisions have been made, and no decisions will be made at tonight's meeting. Here during the question and answer session, we'll take questions that you have about the application that's pending before TCEQ, which in this case is this wastewater permit application. As Maricela mentioned, the meeting tonight is focused on the wastewater facility. TCEQ has no role in regulating that residential development. Our focus is on the wastewater treatment facility. That's the subject of the application that the applicant's made here tonight. During this part of the meeting, I'm not going to call on you. You don't have to raise your hand. If you know any question you want to ask, you just come on up to the microphone, give us your name if you want to, and then ask your question. Please hold all comments for the last part of the meeting, which is the formal comment section. For this part of the meeting, we're just looking for questions that you have about the application. If there's somebody already up here, you can come up and form a line. That helps get through questions more expeditiously. I am not a judge. This is not a hearing, so I can't compel anyone to give a better answer or a different answer to a question that gets asked. And so we understand that there may be a question that gets asked and you don't agree with or like the answer that you heard. We understand that, and that's fine. I would just encourage you to come up during the formal comment session and tell us what it is that you disagree with and be as specific as possible. That kind of helps formulate the comments that you're making on the application. If you have more than one question, that's fine. As I'm saying, I'll start making your way up to the microphone. If you have more than one question, that's fine. We are going to ask that you go one question at a time, allow for a complete response, and then ask your next question after you asked a couple of questions. I'll ask you to take a break, get back in line, give other folks an opportunity to ask questions. If there's time left, you can come up and ask more questions. I will say that the time we have for questions tonight is not unlimited. At some point, I'll cut off the Q&A, we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and start that formal comment session. So now's the time. If you know that you have a question you'd like to ask, either TCEQ or the applicant regarding this application, now's the time. We'll start with this gentleman right here. Yes, sir. When y'all come up to the microphone, please get as close to the microphone as you're comfortable. It'll make, again, easier for us to hear you.
Ready?
I am.
Hi, my name is Daryl Stedman. questions for everyone to answer. What law, code, regulation, or precedent is being used that enables TCEQ to permit or allow a private developer the right to dump wastewater on private property, which is taxed by Wilson County and the state of Texas?
Okay, start there.
So as I mentioned, Chapter 26 of the Texas Water Code is where we get our right to in the permitting, in the wastewater permitting process.
I think bed banks theory, perhaps.
I'm happy to answer that.
Okay, introduce yourself and then go for it.
I'm Helen Gilbert. I represent the applicant in this case.
Hold it real close.
Texas Water Code Section 26027 authorizes TCEQ to issue permits for discharges of treated wastewater into waters of the state. And I would also point you to Domel versus Georgetown that addresses that.
I'll address those when it comes
Under
up.
that, the TCEQ implements that statute by rule, Chapter 305, 281, 309, as well as 317.
That
I
doesn't
could
address
go
the
on.
private property section.
It does. Domel versus Georgetown expressly deals with that issue.
And how does the state of Texas and Wilson County plan on compensating the property owners and refunding decades of the property taxes?
All right.
Also addressed by Domel.
And so, again, like I mentioned before, sorry about that. You may hear an answer that you don't agree with, and that's fine. That's like in the comment period. Come up and express why you don't agree with that. Other questions for TCEQ or the applicant?
I'm Sean Gross, and I live on Tipperary and Shannon Ridge. According to the Domestic Wastewater Permit Application Technical Report 1.1, which is page 19 of 28, A, justification of permit need. The wastewater treatment facility will serve the proposed residential development. Based on easement and right-of-way limitations, no route exists from the site to an organized wastewater treatment facility. The use of a central collection, treatment, and disposable system is being preferred to an equivalent number of private residential septic tank drain fill units, which is at 1,020. My question is, based on easement and right-of-way limitations, what is the size of these small lots? Because there is a septic system on a small lot in Texas, 2026 rules that state Texas requires 5-foot property line setbacks, 50 to 100-foot well setbacks, and a 5 to 10-foot building setbacks. Aerobic drip and mound systems fit where conventional can't.
Thank you.
I can touch on that. So the conventional system, the organized system, is preferred because it has a licensed operator and all of the requirements that TCEQ puts in the permit. The septic systems are maintained by the property owner themselves.
What's the size of the lots? Because a half an acre is sufficient for this smaller lot system.
You're asking what the size of the planned development is?
Of your lots, yes, you got 1,020.
It's undetermined at this point.
Once again, the application that's pending before TCEQ is for this wastewater treatment facility. If you believe that they should use some other method to treat their wastewater, that's certainly something you want to include as part of your comments.
I do have one second question.
Okay.
According to the statement of basis, technical summary, and executive director's preliminary decision, project description and location, the facility has not been constructed. However, at every phase, it will be a membrane bioreactor system consisting of a screening system, an exotic basin, an aeration tank, a membrane basin, and a chlorine contact chamber. My two concerns are, what's the plan for sludge treatment and disposal practices incorporating both federal and state requirement? And what's the plan for dechlorinization to properly manage residual chlorine?
Thank you.
Sludge will be hauled off to a larger facility, so generally the sludge is hauled off to a regional plant, so a city plant, a county plant, something like that, and it's contracted through our operator to that plant.
And the second question had to do with
Dechlorination. Dechlorination is not required until 400,000 gallons a day.
Thank you. Next, please.
Yeah, my name's Ron Klemke. You had mentioned a licensed operator of the waste treatment plant. Who is this waste treatment plant operator? Is it on Mud District?
It will be a mud eventually. The mud is not created yet, but the operator has nothing to do with the mud.
Who is going to fund?
Okay, let her complete her response, and then you can ask her follow-up.
The operator is an independent company contractor that is hired by the mud generally. The permit has a boatload of requirements about the level of classification of that operator and everything, but he has not been, or the company has not been determined at this point.
Okay, because this is going to be staged as increasing, right?
Correct.
The outflow.
Yes,
Right.
correct.
So who paid for the operator of this?
The developer, the permit holder, whoever
Until
is,
it reaches full capacity?
and then at that point it may be transferred to a mud who will be paying for
What
it.
is making
Well, so ask that question again.
that? So you say maybe transfer to the mud operator. What is maybe?
The permit holder, so at this point the permit holder would be HK Bellas, right? At some point they will transfer it to the mud once the mud is created and the mud becomes the operator because they're more equipped to do so.
So do we have any, should we be worried about paying for this thing, for the operator?
No,
Yeah.
mud taxes would only apply to who lives in the subdivision, unless you're planning to live in that
And
subdivision.
just before we start going down this path, the mud and the development of the mud, the creation of the mud is not the subject of this application or tonight's meeting. So I would just say, if you have questions about the mud, development, what have you, say those for the break maybe. They can address those or afterwards. But again, we're focused on the wastewater treatment facility that's been applied for. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Debbie Segovia. I'm a resident in Shannon Ridge. I have submitted my e-comments and attached a file, but I would like to ask this question of HK Bella. What other feasible alternatives have you all considered that avoid routing effluent through established residential properties and avoid discharge to a predominantly dry channel? I would like to know what other scenarios y'all have envisioned. I'll have more information for you in the formal part, but for this purpose and to answer Sean's question, everything we've seen submitted to the county for the plat to be approved is 40-foot wide lots by 120 depth.
All right, thank you. So, good to address the question regarding other alternatives that may be considered.
So we're required to notify other treatment plants within 3 miles. That's the requirement of submitting this application. There was one and they did not offer a service, I guess.
I guess my question is, you've already decided septic can't work out there because the lots are so very tiny. And we're asking what other scenarios you've considered to avoid putting a pipeline into an existing neighborhood that has septic and doing your discharge somewhere else other than an established neighborhood.
The options are septic or a regional plant like this, or a collection system.
So you've not considered going under 181 and going directly to the river instead of putting it through a dry creek?
I think that she's told you what they've considered. If you feel like they should do something else, that's what the comment period would be for.
I didn't hear what the other
I heard
considerations.
septic tanks and connecting to another facility. All right, thank you. Next, please.
Hi, can you hear me? My name is Catherine Sigil. I live in a neighboring community. This question is for the TCEQ group. Has any representative physically been on site to approve the flow path, the potential flow path of the plant?
I would say at this point, nothing's been approved. Like I
Not
said
approved,
before.
but has someone physically stepped foot where they intend the flow to go?
Yes, we have been to the alpha location, which is where the discharge will enter the creek.
Shall I hold it real
Oh,
close?
sorry. We have been to where the alpha location is.
One main point of contention I think many people have is that the effluent will never flow through the creek to the San Antonio River. And I'm saying creek in quotations because it is flat land. There's no water. I think many residents have never seen water in this quote-unquote creek, and a lot of people believe this flow can never physically make it down this land that we're calling creek to the San Antonio River. So can either the applicants or TCEQ prove potentially with a topographical map that this flow can even ever reach the river?
So I'm going to answer that on a couple different points. So I think that there is a lot of people here that are concerned with the discharge not reaching the river. With this discharge being so relatively small in that distance, and the way the substrate is, it is very likely that it won't reach the river because of that. But we don't have any rules that say you can't discharge to an intermittent creek. We have a lot of, it's Texas, so we have a lot of scenarios where it often is an intermittent creek. To say what you're referring to, your other concern about the topography, we have what the applicant provides us, and then we do look at topographic maps to see that it will go where it does. If for any reason it didn't go the way where it's saying it's going to go, and I'm not saying like if it doesn't reach the river, but I'm saying if it flows a different way than it says it's going to flow, then it would not be consistent with the permit, and they have to be consistent with the permit with what they say they submitted. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, but that would of course be after it's already built and discharging and cooling, and it's
Right.
already going against, this is hypothetically already going against the permit that they applied for.
We do look at maps and we do modeling, and we haven't seen anything to suggest that it wouldn't go where it's saying it's going.
And so I would just say that, yes, that's the point of the public comment period, is if you have information, whether it's data, reports, you have your own maps, if you have that kind of information you want to provide it to us, we will take that from you. Michelle's provided the agency's perspective on this question. If you have different information that you want to give us, please give it to us. They'll take a look at it and consider it as they're making final decisions on the application.
So just to confirm, you do have a current map that shows the topography of the area, or you do not?
We look at USGS topo maps, which include the topography.
Yes, okay.
One more question, or are you done? If you're walking away. All right. Next, please.
This is for the developer. You said you didn't consider any other options. Why was a land-based application via irrigation not considered? I've operated a plant for almost 15 years that's similar in size.
Are you talking about a TLAP?
Almost like an irrigation.
Land application permit and no discharge permit?
Yes, like to land, almost like a circular irrigator or something.
Right, the application area required to accommodate the effluent and to irrigate crops is much larger than the footprint allows.
Not sufficient space.
There's not enough acreage for the application area and the residential area.
Thank you. Do you have another question?
Okay, there's a lot of neighbors that have farmland and stuff like that. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Next, please.
Hey, my name is Mark Berg, and I thank you guys for being here. My question is specifically to the developer. Bottom line up front, and I'll be quick with this. The way I look at it, when it comes to leadership, trust and transparency is a key cornerstone of that. And when it comes to economic development and leadership, those two always kind of have a hard time matching. So my question to you with regard to model mapping and stuff like that with regard to the water, have you guys taken any effort, done any efforts to get any kind of modeling to see what the flow is, current conditions for the creek, and how that reality will actually affect the community over time, and more specifically, over the next 50, 20, and 100 years for the families that are going to live here.
So you directed that question to us, but it's really a TCEQ question because they did perform Qualtex modeling, and they can address that, I think.
Yeah, so we have, is there somebody here from modeling? No, Mike is nodding his head. Mike, come on down. Introduce yourself and then talk about modeling at TCEQ.
Yeah, Mike Linder, hi sir. I'm the team leader of the dissolved oxygen modeling group. So we look at the waterways and the uses of the waterways and make sure that the discharge will not affect the aquatic life in the waterways. For instance, in the intermittent stream the lady was referring to, who was up here before, in that case, the criteria for dissolved oxygen is only 3.0 milligrams per liter, because we understand that it's not reasonable. I mean, not even under natural conditions are there going to be fish in a place like that. But in the San Antonio River, the criteria for dissolved oxygen is 5.0, which is a more stringent criteria, because there will be fish in there. So we did modeling taking into consideration that when the discharge hits that intermittent stream and when it hits the San Antonio River, that the dissolved oxygen in that water should be high enough to support aquatic life.
That is brilliant. And the challenge that I have with that model is that it doesn't affect the reality of Pycastra Creek and the conditions here in Wilson County. So not to say that it's absolutely on point and correct based on what you're doing an assessment for, but the modeling for Wilson County, I don't think it's spot on. I think there's going to be problems with it. And that's why I asked the question, so that I can at least know the process that you guys use to get the modeling and look at the information in that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, next please.
Hi, Catherine Sigil again. I have two questions toward the developers. You just said that there wasn't enough land to support I don't know the right word, a land-based plant?
The land application.
Land application. Have you considered lessening your lot sizes to accommodate a land permit?
So just
expanding your lot sizes.
Just to distinguish,
Oh,
there may be beneficial reuse of the effluent that's different than a TLAP, than a land application permit. But this is a discharge permit, which at its maximum capacity is 250,000 gallons per day, which is a very minor discharge, considered minor by EPA and by TCEQ. But no, to your question, the lot size, we're not here to discuss the lot size. It's not addressed in the application or the permit. It's not under the jurisdiction of the agency, but the plant has been sized for a number of homes. To the extent that changes, then the permit has to be amended. And to the gentleman's point before, this kind of ties into this, the permit only lasts for 5 years. If the state of Texas promulgates different rules in the meantime, there's site-specific information from Wilson County, Pycastra Creek, San Antonio River, then upon renewal, the applicant permittee has to comply with those newer, more stringent rules. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but it also seems impossible, because how can you develop a plant with one permit in mind, and we're all sort of, we know it's not going to work. So then, I mean, I'm saying hypothetically, this is my comment. So we know the effluent is not going to make it to the river, so you will be in violation of the permit, and this is what we all sort of think is going to happen. So I'm asking, have you considered alternative
So
sites?
I feel like
there are intermittent streams, thousands of them all over the state of Texas, and it is consistent with the water quality standards that the modeling that Mr. Leonard talked about before takes into account whether you're discharging into a dry creek like Pycastra or perennial pools or directly into the San Antonio River. So the topography, the reaching the San Antonio River as you laid out previously long as the discharge effluent meets the Texas water quality standards, that is compliant with the permit.
Whether it physically connects to the river, is that?
That's correct. This entire area is in a drainage that flows to the San Antonio River. Whether you see it in the water course or in the alluvial, it is connected hydraulically and hydrologically to the San Antonio River according to the computer modeling.
I believe the computer modeling may be outdated. My second question.
That's something you want to. Thank you. That's something you want to talk about in your comments. I just want to be real clear. TCEQ would not be able to dictate to an applicant use a discharge or use a TLAP. What we do is the applicant makes their proposal, and we review it to make sure that it's going to be protected in the health environment, no matter what method they choose. And so in this instance, they've chosen a discharge permit, and that's what we're reviewing.
My second question is, has the applicant involved the local water, fresh water, groundwater company in any of these discussions? Because if the effluent cannot reach the San Antonio River, and I don't know the correct word for it, but if you need like a boost of water, if you need makeup water from the local groundwater company, which is Oak Hills, that's going to put a significant stress on that company as well as all the residents who rely on that groundwater. So has the applicant been in talks with them?
I think, because I've heard you mention this a couple times, I'm going to ask Michelle, she talked about this earlier, reiterate what you said about whether the discharge test would make it to the San Antonio River.
Yes, just to clarify, because this is such a small discharge, if it dries up, if it evaporates before it reaches the river, or if it is absorbed into the substrate, there's nothing in the rules that saying it has to reach the river to not be impacted. It's okay for it to, if it dries up, it doesn't have to reach the river.
So are you saying that the discharge from the plant can exit the plant into this dry creek, and it may or may not stand stagnant? It may or may not flow to the river. It may or may not stand stagnant, and TCEQ is saying that that's okay?
There is a possibility for pooling. With a discharge of this size, it's more likely that it would evaporate, and rather than really
more like.
But there's.
Hold on. Go ahead, Michelle.
But yes, if it's drying up and it does not reach the river, that is not an issue.
I just wanted to clarify that, again, there's not a requirement for this river to actually reach the San Antonio.
Correct.
But that is in their permit, correct?
So the reason for all permits are required to say, okay, like if be most conservative. So it's saying that it has to be the most protected in the most dry times and at the most wet conditions. So it's saying that if there's years where it's very drought, lots of drought, it has to be protected in those scenarios. If there's years where they have a lot of water and it is reaching the San Antonio River, it needs to just take both of those situations into account.
Thank you. Next, please.
I'm Whitney Mills, and I live in Shannon Ridge over Leprechaun. This is, I think, a TCEQ question. What does the monitoring process look like after the waste treatment plant? Oh,
Yeah,
I'm so
we're
sorry.
having trouble
I'm sorry. What does the monitoring system look like once that plant is built? How does TCEQ keep on top, making sure that nothing's wrong?
Yes, so basically this permit will have 3 phases. There is interim phase 1, which is 0.075, which has CVOD that needs to be, the effluent limit is 5 milligrams per liter. That one needs to be measured once a week. We also have TSS, same 5 milligrams per liter, once per week. So basically, under interim 1 phase, it will be once a week. For E. coli, it will be once a quarter. DO will be once per week. pH will be once per month. Once it goes to the interim phase 2, which is 0.15 mgd, it will be same once per week. For For E. coli will be once a month, DO once per week, and pH once per month. And then once it reaches the final phase, which is 0.25, it will be, say, once a week, and then E. coli once a month, DO once per week, pH, and yeah, it will be once per week.
And who is that reported to?
To TCEQ.
The TCEQ is the answer.
Okay, TCEQ is monitoring it and then reporting it to TCEQ.
Yes.
So,
And then when it comes to renewable,
Hold on. So the samples themselves, here comes Deb. Introduce yourself. And
Just to give you a clear answer to that. TCEQ does not sample or test it. So they have certified sampler. They need to come out, take the sample, and reach out to a third-party lab, which is approved by TCEQ. And there is some certain time limit. You have to take the sample now, within 1 hour, 2 hours, maybe, I don't know, give me an example, you have to bring it to the lab. And they do the testing. And lab, they directly send us on a monthly basis. So we review, daily basis, not daily basis, regularly. And if we see there is any incidences going on, and then we initiate a violation or enforcement case against the entity.
okay, so if there, I think you just said if there are issues, then they would report to the community?
No.
No.
No. They just report to us. Like they have some unauthorized discharges, right? There is malfunction going on. So they discharge unauthorized or untreated wastewater. They need to report us within 24 hours. But this is, I'm talking about the regular monitoring and once per week, they should say. So they need to monitor it once per week and report back to us on a monthly basis. We have an online system. Anybody can access the results.
So it's up to the community to keep on top of this system and for us to notice if anything's wrong?
No. That's all he said.
Okay.
TCEQ reviews those reports, right, Devin?
Yes, we review.
Okay.
And we take action against them if there is any malfunction or accidents. What she reported, like 5 milligram carbonaceous biochemical oxygen demands or total suspended solids dissolved oxygen. We have put the limits, right, in the permits. So if they exceed any of the effluents, we go after them.
And them is?
The permittee.
The permit holder.
Okay.
And let me just add, all the discharge monitoring reports are public information. Under the
Posted online somewhere, right?
Thank you.
It's posted. We have TCEQ EPA website. It's called ECHO. If you Google it, you will find it. Put the permit number, you will see all the reports there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
My name is Roy Gray. I have a ranch on the west side, on the north side.
Step in just a little bit closer.
I have a question for you. You keep mentioning that we're only doing 250,000 gallons a day. That's a small amount. I'm going to preach to the choir to yell the rest of the people. So that's 250,000 gallons a day. An acre ranch is 27,154 gallons.
We're still having, I think folks in the background, Mark, can you step a little bit closer to the microphone, please? Or speak up.
So an acre ranch is 27,154. Good?
Yes.
So in a day, that's 9.2 feet, I'm sorry, inches of water in a day. So you take 30 days, that's 23 foot of water in an acre foot. This building's about an acre foot. So that's how much water. You know, you're sitting there saying, it might dry up. I'm not worried about it drying up, I'm worried about where it's going.
So, a couple of things. So that 0.25 MGD is throughout the entire day. So it is a relatively small discharge from what we usually see with these permits. Just to kind of visualize it, like if you were to see a pipe size of about the size of a basketball going throughout the day, that's about 1 MGD. So this is 0.25, so it's just much less than that. And this is throughout the day, and it is going into a creek that is fairly sizable. So if it's going throughout the day, it's a fairly small amount, where it's really not like a rush of water. It's being released.
Have you actually laid your eyes on this creek that's lit, it's sizable?
Yes.
You have?
Yes.
You couldn't drive a vehicle, you couldn't drive a Volkswagen on the west side?
We often see discharges of this size go into drainage ditches that are like much smaller.
Okay, you're still talking about 250,000 gallons a day.
Yes.
Right now, we've been in a drought. Right now, we're flooding that. So we got to put that on top of this. And on the north side of the road, that's a big, flat, open expanse. It's not like what I would call a creek bed or something like that. This water's going to spread out all over the place. Now, how do you explain that? And, question, where did you come up with the 250,000 for 1,020 homes? What are you basing that on?
I'm just basing I'm not doing anything with the homes. I'm not really focused on the development. I'm specifically focused on the amount that's coming out of the pipe.
You got an answer?
Yeah, the standard assumption for a single-family house is 245 gallons a day.
A day.
So 1,020 homes times that 245.
240. I have one other question. You've already gone through this one time and you were denied. Now, why are we doing it again? Why are we going through this again? We're being denied. Trying to go to the river and telling everybody you can go to the river. And I know the people that own the property that fought about this. And I've seen that 80 acres turn into a lake just off the rain. Now you're telling everybody, y'all don't understand. We're going to go the other way. We're going to go through this Dundare Creek that's about as wide as that table. And about as tall as your head, that deep. But we're going to be running all down through it. And then like you said, we're going to be monitoring it. That's fine. So we monitor it, and guess what? They're out of compliance. So what are we going to do now with that? They're out of compliance.
So there was a lot there. First, I don't want to relitigate the prior application. That's over. This is a new application. Is there anything you can say about this application, how it's different from the prior application?
What was your question, sir?
How is this application different?
What was his question?
What?
Sorry, what was your question?
What is this application any different than the last one when it was turned down because it wasn't going to go to the river?
Well, as Mr. Patterson pointed out, the permit application pending before the agency now is different. It's got a different capacity, it's got a different discharge route. The discharge route is different, and it also goes to the San Antonio River.
All right, so again, we understand that you don't agree with that. Tell us about it during the comment session. Let's keep moving.
Do you have another question?
So the other question had to do with what happens if we find out that they're out of compliance.
The last application was less houses. Now you're putting more houses on this application.
So they are limited to,
Not necessarily.
I was going to say, they're limited to the amount of discharge that they've asked for in the application, which is 250,000 gallons per day. Regardless of how many homes they end up putting out there, 250,000 gallons is what they're going to be limited to in this permit.
All right, so they're limited to 250,000 gallons a day. What happens if they go over that?
Okay. We have folks from our regional office. Joy, come on up. I tell you what, Joy, come as far towards the middle because I think we're getting some feedback when we use that microphone. There you go. Introduce yourself and talk about.
Hi, I'm Joy Thurston Cook, Water Section Manager at the San Antonio Regional Office. We regulate wastewater treatment plants, we regulate construction, so when they start building, if y'all have concerns about construction, you can call our office. But if they are exceeding their discharge, they're in violation of the permit and the rule, and they can face fines and penalties and will have to get a modified permit to expand to be able to accommodate that discharge or up and haul until they can figure out what they're going to do.
That's kind of like the old saying. I ask forgiveness before you ask permission.
Well, if they need to amend their permit, they would have to go through this same process like what we're doing right now. So it's not something that they would be able to amend.
Another question for these folks over here.
Well-
Who's putting in the septic, the sewer tank? Who's doing that? Your company, BK Villa?
Are you referring to the MVR, the membrane biological reactor plant? It's going to be designed by LJA.
Who's LJA?
Are you asking who's building it, like who's paying for it?
Who's gonna run it? All right, well, who's gonna build it, who's gonna run it? Y'all are development, the day y'all are done, y'all are gone.
I'm an engineer.
And y'all are gone, the day this thing is finished,
All right, so
y'all are gone, and somebody else
The
is done.
permittee is
Who's gonna
responsible.
be, who's the person we're gonna go to and say, you're not in compliance?
That'll be the permittee,
Permittee.
the person who's holding the permit.
But y'all are gone by then.
Well, the permittee is still
No, I'm
responsible.
talking about the building. I'm
Okay.
talking about
Understood, thank you. We got other folks who are waiting to ask questions. We're going to move on. For housekeeping purposes, it's about 7:50. We'll do 10 more minutes of questions, and then we'll take that break and come back for the formal comment session. Next, please.
My name is Alina Berlanga. I live in the Shannon Ridge neighborhood where this is going to, or where they're trying to discharge this. I saw, I believe in the application, where they are estimating at 2 peak hours an estimated 1 million gallons per day. So I don't know if that was an error that I misread, or can you confirm if that's?
So the plants are designed for worst case scenario, meaning the total flow in the day would be 250,000 gallons, but if everyone flushes their toilet within 2 hours, we're gonna have a peak, and so the plant needs to be able to handle that, but we still can't go over the daily limit.
Okay, so it could potentially be 1 million gallons a day at peak hours.
No, it would be a portion, it would just be pushed into an hour of that day. We could not, over 24 hours, go over that 250,000 gallons a day, period.
Okay, so this question, I have kind of a two-part question to TCEQ. With the first application, I'm not going to dwell a lot on it, but there was part of the reason that it was denied ultimately was somebody drew an additional line that connected Sandpit Creek to the San Antonio River, and that was an uphill area. That was incorrect. My question is, and then, okay, so that's the previous one, right? That created other issues. On this one, their application indicates that that this area is not in a floodplain. That's incorrect. The FEMA map shows clearly that a portion of Highcaster Creek, specifically in the Shannon Ridge area, is in a floodplain. So what does TCEQ do to verify the accuracy of these applications? And are there penalties for falsehoods in applications?
Okay.
Okay, so they provide the FEMA map, and then we have to confirm. We also go to FEMA and confirm that the applicant match whatever is in FEMA. We have the map here. There is also other requirement on the permit. So if there is flooding, they need to protect the facility against that.
Can I jump in real quick? The requirement is for the treatment plant to be outside of the floodplain, not the discharge route.
So you have the same map that I learned that shows floodplain?
We may, but
And it's different.
So if the facility's not in there, then it's okay to dump into the floodplain.
thank you. Next, please.
Hi, David May, I live in Wexford. Everybody keeps saying it's a small amount of wastewater. My property is adjacent to where it's going to be discharged from. I don't think a 250,000 gallons is that little bit of wastewater. And it's going to be pooling. And I want to know what's going to be done about the pooling. It is not going to evaporate every day. Trust me. I've seen the water evaporate.
All right, so address some questions regarding cooling in the discharge route.
So
I think that's something more that would be beneficial to include. I think a lot of people have brought that up, the concern of cooling, and I think that'd be a great thing to bring back in the formal comment. Okay.
Thank you. Do you have any other questions?
On the ranch, there's nothing to say about the cooling. I don't particularly want
understood. His question regarding cooling.
And I'll allow the engineer to address that as well, but the effluent is treated to meet water quality standards, which, as Mr. Linder pointed out earlier, is protective of aquatic life, but also human life for contact recreation, which means, and studies have supported this in the promulgation of the rule, that the effluent is a highly treated and protective of both aquatic life, fish, wildlife, human life.
Let me pump it in your backyard and say,
Thank you very much. We're running short on time. I'll give this gentleman and then the gentleman in the cowboy hat, and that'll be it for questions. Thank you. Come on.
Hello. My name is Tom Segura. I live in Shannon Ridge. I got a question, and you kind of touched on it. There's a lot of concern. There's one road in, one road out in Shannon Ridge. And I think I saw you guys down at the discharge point today. There was a couple of trucks coming out of TCEQ vehicles. My question is, a lot of us have concerns that this water's not going to go, and it's going to pool, and it could pool back and actually be over that road. And we have to drive through to go in, to exit and enter the neighborhood. Is that acceptable with TCEQ? Do we have to drive through this E. coli crap to the
So again, that's the pooling thing. So that's something that would be good to include in the public comments, so we can look into it and address that formally. The other thing is the road is upstream of, they're discharging downstream of the road. So yes, if it was to be going upstream, then that would be not consistent with their permit.
Yeah, because I believe the permit indicates that the discharge not only going to go down, but it could go to the other.
The discharge route is highlighted as being just downstream.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, my name is Doug Minchow. I own some property between 181 and Business 181. The Kicastra Creek runs through about 2/10 of a mile of river on both sides of between my property. My question is, y'all were offered an easement or a right-of-way to pipe that water directly to the San Antonio River through that Sandpit Creek area. Why did y'all turn that down and choose to be putting this water and causing water to stand possibly on people's properties and such, when you could have fixed the problem that simple if you wanted to build a sewer plant that bad?
All right, so that is a question that's not related to the permit application pending before TCEQ. What I would say is, if you want to ask them about stuff that's unrelated to the permit, we're going to take a break. You can ask them during the break. You can talk to them after the meeting.
Wait a minute, I ain't finished though.
All right, what's your next question?
Now, you say that water's going to be a 0.5 when it hits the river. That's what you said earlier?
The volume in 3 phases is 75,000 gallons a day, which will take years because it corresponds with the rate and pace of construction. After that, it's 150,000, and ultimately, which will be in years, probably at least the first term of the permit, the first 5 years, 250,000 gallons per day. But that's just the volume. The treatment levels are 5 milligrams per liter TSS, 5 milligrams per liter BOD, 0.5 milligrams per liter total phosphorus, which is a very stringent limit for total phosphorus nutrients, which is precursor to algae blooms. You know about that. And there's an E. coli limit as well, which addresses bacteria. And of course, the effluent is treated with orange.
Any other questions?
Well, to you, we're here to have a meeting.
Yes.
And I think you may have limited time, but if you're telling me you don't have time for us, then why did we have this meeting?
Thank you. So it's, let's see, 8 o'clock. Let's be back at 8:05 for a second. Thank you. We're on break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let him talk.
Let him talk. If you care about us, you'll let him talk. Let him talk. Go ahead.
On your topographical study,
Did they forget?
Good work.